Let's start. Welcome to Mindful Live 81. We're well along here. It is the 24th of May in the year of our Lord, 2022. Yes. Welcome. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Welcome to the Mindful Live, where we talk about the different topics on information and news of the day. And what shall we discuss tonight? What shall we discuss tonight? Well, I am starting off talking about the same thing I spoke about in my contemplation. This vendor in San Juan, however you want to pronounce it, on the Croisy, on the Quasi, on the Promenade, wherever he was, that was moved and I believe given 7 charges and a fine for illegally vending where he wasn't supposed to. Now, this guy, if we're looking at this, looking at the setup of the young man, I have to give the young man some credit, because it seems like this young man wasn't just doing something just randomly there. The guy from the info that I got, he has his food badge. You could look at the video here. I'll play it on my YouTube. Over on the YouTube, you could look at it. I am streaming live right now on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you are looking at me over on TikTok or Instagram, make sure you hit that like button. Allow the algorithm to know, hey, this is some good stuff. Send it out there to more people. Make sure you're hitting that like button. If you are looking on YouTube, you can hit the like button too. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. If you are looking at this on repeat on YouTube, make sure to drop a comment and a like. And hit that subscribe button. Any of you looking at this live and are wondering about the other lives, because this is Mindful Live number 81. The other 80 are over there on my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer over on YouTube. Be sure to go over there and subscribe to that channel. All right. If you look at the video and you're looking at this young man, it seems very obvious he put some effort into what he was doing. If you're looking at the setup he has there, you're looking at the setup, how everything is laid out. The young man obviously is putting some effort into this. This isn't the same thing as for example, one of the peeves I have with the young men who are hustling, trying to clean your windshields on the highway at the lights. That I believe is illegal also. My biggest peeve with them, though, isn't just that it is illegal, but that these young men are not upgrading their game. They're not upgrading their hustle. Like, all right, you're cleaning my window. By the time you do this for a week, reinvest some money and look a little better. Put on a little white shirt, a little black pants, so it looks like we're in uniform, and we have on a nice cap and we print something on the cap, and then we each get some nice squeegees, and you see us changing the water, and maybe we get a little soap deal with some local soap company. Something, upgrade your game. And I will give Chow King for some props. He obviously was in that upgrade your game. You look at his table has a nice clean tablecloth evenly layered over it. He has his sealed boxes there with his stuff bagged out and the stuff inside the boxes. Nice, it looks good. He has some good presentation. You know, I was saying that I actually like the fact that Chow seems to be good business right now in Trinidad and Tobago. I like that fact. I like it. It seems like Trinidadians appreciate this local delicacy. We appreciate the difficulty it is in gathering all these fruits and gathering the seasoning and flavoring, etc., etc., etc. Grand. And nobody care about men saying that it's to buy a smoke. If it is, then well done. It isn't the common way people go to buy a smoke. Usually the pipers and sprangers that go trying to just make a quick buck to buy a smoke aren't dressed and doing a business plan this way. I find that kind of insulting and belittling also, unless you know that for a fact that the man was doing this to buy a smoke. You're obviously seeing that this man is doing this on a business head. This isn't just a hustler trying to make a quick buck to buy a smoke. He's obviously doing this on a more business head. The reason that this makes sense noting is because to do something like this requires effort. It requires thinking. It requires foresight. You can see how he's dressed. Oh, okay, well, probably I misunderstood. You can see how he's dressed. The man has on a little kind of green chef uniform business. clean shoes, long pants. It looks proper. Now, there's the reality that he is breaking the law. And I know Richard Blubman over there, one of the regulars on TikTok, would be probably the first to jump in the chat and say that the law is the law. I understand. But when it comes to something like making a living, business, you know, how people make money, laws, of course, yep, he agrees. Laws have to be very careful because a lot of the business laws that are enacted in and around countries, in and around societies, and actually with the intention of protecting people. What's the purpose of a law? What's the purpose of the Constitution? To make this country more functional, to make a more functional country. Do windshield wipers do not upgrade because it's just, oh, the windshield wipers? Okay, I understand what you're saying, and that may be true. Right, the laws are there supposedly to make a more functional society. But when people look and see that laws make a difficulty to enter certain markets, then it makes it more difficult to upkeep these laws. Now, I believe in the free market system. I believe in the capitalist system. But here's the problem. To really function within the free market, within the capitalist system, you require capital. And one of the tricks that many of the capitalist societies do is they make the entry into having the capital to really function inside of the capitalist system. They make that very difficult to do. If you start at zero, you have to accumulate quite a bit before you exit out of that plain consumer level where you could only consume and you can't own anything. You have to work really hard to get out of that level, to actually get into the ownership level, to actually become part of the free agents inside of the free market conducting business in the capitalist system. Now, the worst laws you have, the kind of laws you don't want, barriers to entry, right? That was actually the technical term I was trying to remember. Thank you very much, Curvon. Very helpful. The laws that you do not want are the kind of laws that make the barriers to entry higher and higher and higher. And when you make those barriers to entry higher and higher and higher, what happens is not that people stay home and starve and don't do any work. It's that the entire thing becomes a black market. For example, the marijuana business, marijuana trade is illegal. The barriers to entry into the marijuana trade are that there is no avenue for entry in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, let's look at the reality of our society. Have those barriers for entry into the marijuana trade in Trinidad and Tobago stopped the trade of marijuana, or have they caused more people to just break the law in trading their marijuana? And that's what happens with most barriers to entry. If you make it so difficult, then you encourage people to break the law. It's like the father who released the several blows on the young boy who allegedly molested his daughter. If, as the story was saying, that the truth is he carried it to the police, he carried it to the school, over a week went on and the thing still happened again, then what happened there is that the system that was meant to work for the benefit of the civilian in that case failed him. And if the system fails, what happens is not that people just fall back and, oh my goodness, the system fails, what shall we do? No, people take matters into their own hands. You don't get a failing system and people just sit home and cry. No, people take matters into their own hands. So for example, over in the US with their Second Amendment and the guns, etc., etc., you regularly hear some people say that many of the laws are actually there to protect some of the criminals more than the law-abiding citizens. You see, if someone breaks into my home and I find out who the person is and I inform the police and the police do nothing about it, what that is doing, what that is signaling to me is that the next time someone breaks into my home, if I would like to secure my own goods, I have to see about it myself. So if this young man is attempting to enter the business market, he got his food license, he invested in his chefware, he got his foldable table, he got his massive plastic bins to hold his chow, he got his plastic bags to bag them off, he has his thongs, he has his his tongs, he has his seasoning, he has his fruit pickers, because to find the fruit and pick them reliably is already a difficult thing. He worked out all of this, and obviously he invested quite a bit. Now, in order for him to sell this product, he has to be in a high traffic area. There are no places to rent in and around the Quasi. He sees that in order for me to do this business, as I see it, this is the business that I am good at. In order for me to do this, I need to go in this high traffic area. He goes there and he may know that he's breaking the law, but he risks it. If now you say that no, you cannot go there, in order for you to sell chow, you need to rent out one of these buildings in San Juan, and you would have to pay $15,000 a month in rental to go and rent one of these places, and then you could run your business in there. That is not feasible for him. That is just not feasible. Richard says, what about the other chowmen who not breaking the law? Well, here's the thing. I happen to know some chowmen personally, quite a few actually, and there aren't many of them that aren't breaking the law. The truth is that law is optionally enforced. A lot of the laws in Trinidad are like that, and that's my complaint constantly about it, that we have so many laws on our law books that it's kind of always up to the police if they want to do you something or not. You make a system where the police are the law because you're always breaking the law in some way or the other. So any of the chowmen you see, generally speaking, in any of the urban areas, they're breaking the law. You know how many times the police have chased them? It's just that they go back. They keep persisting. You see the chowman in his favorite spot there in Shoguns, he has been chased before, numerous times. What he is doing is technically illegal. Yes, it is. But they allow him to do it because they understand that if you make the barriers for entry into this kind of entrepreneurship too difficult, what you are going to do is not make your city less crowded and make your city have less traffic. You are just going to make more hustlers out there who have no interest in following the law. The example I drew with that is over in Tunisia. The man Mohammed Bouazizi or something like that, I believe his name was. He was the spark that ignited the Arab Spring uprising back in 2011. Good night, cybercrime unit. He was the spark that ignited that way back in 2011. I don't know how many of you remember the Arab Spring. Tunisia, Egypt, nearly all of those countries in that whole, northern African into Arabia span there, almost all of them had unrest, revolution after revolution. The ones that didn't have a full outright revolution had some disturbances attempting to go in that line. Now, there are some other factors in that with social media and allegedly the CIA over in the United States pushing for certain things, and right. But we're talking about what started it. What was the catalyst that began this whole thing? And it was officials, police, going into the marketplace and seizing the illegal goods of an illegal vendor and throwing him out. And they did it 1 week, they did it another week, they did it another week, and they kept doing it. You see, a lot of these things, as I said, a lot of these business laws and laws when it comes to consumers and business and how you start businesses and the licenses, etc., a lot of these laws aren't for the protection of the regular man. They are to increase the barriers to entry so that you don't get those goods from these smaller vendors. You go get it from our party financiers or the people that we are friends with. So they kept doing that to try and kick them out. Now this man, eventually, he obviously had enough, and he had a sharp mind enough that he was willing to do the extreme. And he did the extreme. Self-immolation. Douse yourself with something flammable and boom. Now that is far out there. As someone said in the comments to the contemplation, they don't believe any Trinidadian is going to do that. I don't think so either. I don't think that Chow King over there is going to... I don't think we stand the high risk of Chow King trying to, out his own... Well, I got to say out himself, but That's not outing, that's lighting. Mantis Shadow over on YouTube says, certainly it can many times be about protecting special interests by embedded large businesses. I think this is most evident with the marijuana laws. Beat me to it. They were protesting for increased liberty, I believe, and less authoritarian governments in general. Yes, they were. And that's the thing about authoritarian governments. That's what they do. They clamp down on you with authoritative laws. And that is the very problem there. If the law itself, yes, the law is the law, as Richard Glubman likes to say. Yes, the law is the law. That is truth. But if the law doesn't serve the people, then the people aren't going to serve the law, and you are going to end up with a lawless society. That's the problem. And in a case like this, I think the analysis has to be clear. The analysis has to be clear. Is something like this worth putting the young man in handcuffs, charging him with 7 charges and a fine? Is that going to result in better outcomes for the general Trinidad and Tobago society? Now, I don't think so. I just don't think so. I think a lot of the heavy-handed actions by our police officers lead to increased criminality. It leads to increased criminality. This kind of advantageous way that many police have about them increases the criminality. I remember a police officer, I can't remember if I said this story already here, a police officer that I know very closely, someone I knew, spoke to. They told me this story themselves. They worked in the task force, and they remember picking up someone who was in training. He remembers picking up someone who was in training for the air guard, and they framed the young man. He didn't have anything on him. They planted something on him. Well, the guy who was relating this story to me said that it was one of the higher ups did it, and the young man said, I have nothing on me, what are you doing? I wouldn't be able to think, etc., etc. They said, don't worry, you'll just get a couple weeks and you out already, you don't study that. They told the man that after they planted something on him. He goes in, spends a couple months. Obviously, when he comes out, he can no longer train for the air guard. He's not going to be accepted. And then a year later down the road, the man is then one of the most notorious criminals in the region. That was a criminal created by the police. And before Richard Glubman comes in to say like it's a minority of the police, remember the former commissioner of police. I read this article yesterday, or was it the day before? The former commissioner of police spoke about an incident when he went into the police station and he was attempting to meet another inspector, and a lady officer inside there didn't know who he was, and she threatened to arrest him because she had him sitting there waiting for a long time without any reason. She threatened to arrest him. Now, the thing about that, I think any police found with that kind of thing is supposed to make a long jail sentence. Any police found threatening to arrest somebody, charge somebody innocently, put them in jail for a long time, because that is what you are risking on other people. Jail is not just some flip on something that, I have the authority to do this, I could throw you in jail or not. You know what, I changed my mind. That's not something that works like that. I find that horrible, and that creates criminality, especially in a society where we know that many of the youths are walking a tightrope, trying to balance here, and we know that anytime they slip off that tightrope, they are going to end up in the burgeoning gang scene that we know we have in this country. The gangs are waiting. The gangs are waiting there with open arms. And if the young men in this society see that these police are just setting us up, they're out here hating on us, these police act like they are in an opposing gang to me, then it's best I join a gang so at least I could get some protection and benefit from it. Good night, Lee Forever Board. That gonna breed a lot of heat. Yes, I think it is. I do think it is going to breed some heat. Now, I was looking over on Twitter and I saw the counselor who regularly is in my lives to, what is his name? McCasey, I believe his name is. I can't remember for sure. It slips my mind sometimes. And I saw him talking about he's looking to see if he can organize a spot for this same young man out in Etihad. And I applaud that. I'm grateful for that. That is very good. But even that, I'm not sure the young man ideal spot might be Etihad. His business probably was San Juan. He may have had regular customers in that area. What happens then? Good night, interesting. Quickie Robinson, thank you very much. But the police's gangs are divided into different sections. The police do act like gangs very often, and when they act like gangs, that is just going to disintegrate our society more, because gangs will start to treat them like gangs. You don't want it to be like that. That's not what you want in a society. A society cannot be functional if it operates like that. Maybe he can try True Value Car Park. The thing is, most of the places for him to do that kind of vending may be illegal. Is there anywhere in the country that isn't owned by somebody? Where can he stand up that isn't owned by somebody? That's the thing. How do you solve things like that? How do you make your society much easier for the young entrepreneurs, for those starting from the bottom, those starting with zero, to be able to actually enter the market? How do you make it easy for something like that to happen? Grandy Plaza offered him his spot too, as he is from Grandy. As a businessman, you know you have to pay the police coward tax. Wow. Paying the police more than their salary. The police get salaries already from your taxes. You are not supposed to be paying the police anything more for anything else. That's not how this system is supposed to be run. You are creating further criminality. And that's one of the problems I've always had in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is not the easiest place to start doing business. It's not the easiest place. There are so many barriers to doing business, and that's stuff you read about that the business community regularly complains about. And if you are already in it, okay, it's not that difficult. But if you are not, well, yeah, good luck trying to enter there. He stated that it wasn't the first time he was asked by the police to move. I am almost sure that would not have been the first time. I believe that's why they probably put him in handcuffs. I don't think that was the first time they met that young man. I don't think so. That was never even my point. I am pretty sure he was told multiple times. This is one of those things I'm willing to compromise on. I believe in compliance, but street vending adds value to the consumer and the seller. Yeah, it does. It does. The thing is, there must be a limitation. If you leave him there, then what would you do if somebody comes right behind him and sets up another stall? And then what do you do when that entire walkway becomes an open air market and there's no room to walk? Would you say that only him can stay? And what happens to the second person who comes and then you tell them, well, you can't stay, only he can stay? How do you do it? Pedestrians would then complain about lack of enforcement. Yes, I believe they will. To be fair, I don't really see anyone vending in that walkway before. Now, I think the solution to a lot of these things are creating the spaces for such activities to occur. And creating these spaces and not having them in such a biased manner. For example, I remember in Shoguns, a lot of the market, people used to do their market sales sometimes on the road. They built a massive market. They built a kind of permanent flea market business somewhere there where the old Shoguns Health Center was, and nearly no one uses it. And when you hear many of the vendors talk about it, you hear that the stalls inside of those markets, inside of those created spots, they go to people who have connections inside of the regional corporations. Sometimes the street vendors who they created the space for, they cannot get a stall, but someone who has a business already in some other building inside of there, they have a stall doing they have a second store inside of the place created for the vendors. These are the problems that cause some of this. So that this place was created for the vendors, and then the larger businesses create their second stores inside there, and now the vendors are back on the road creating the same first problem we had. the Shoguns Flea Market is ignored and the street vendors obstruct the entrance to many stores. Yes, but the Shoguns Flea Market has a lot of bacchanal in it. The Shoguns Flea Market has stores. Nearly every single stall inside of the Shoguns Flea Market has an owner. Someone is running it. Someone is storing their goods in there and doing other business by the way. And if you are a street vendor, you were selling vests and underwear, some Leopoldo underwear out there on the Shoguns main road and the wife beater vest. You know how it goes. You're selling the wife beater and the Leopold, however you say that. They put you inside of the new flea market they build. They say, okay, so you can go in there and sell your goods and we'll make sure all the customers go in there. Okay, so you go in there and you're placed on the third lane in the back somewhere there. You're waiting on customers to come in. By the way, you have to sell a garbage bag of your clothing every day. Otherwise, you don't make enough money to carry home for your children. So you're waiting there. And then you see another store that some other person, a businessman that has a store in Shoguns, he gets one of the booths and is using it as a warehouse. And because of that, less customers coming to the flea market because there aren't all stores inside there, and you just sit in the back of the flea market there, hoping some random person walks in the back there to buy a vest and drawers. It's not going to happen. So what you do is you pick up your stuff and head back to the main road because that's how you make your money. And if someone has been doing this, bear in mind, some of these vendors, some of them are small islanders bringing stuff. I know some small islanders doing that trade for decades, bringing stuff from Guyana, bringing stuff from St. Vincent, bringing stuff from Grenada and selling it in Trinidad and Tobago. They've been doing that. That's how they make a living. If you stop them from doing that, you don't provide them an alternative, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? How else are they going to do it? So many people don't have jobs right now, and the systems to do right can't even help you at the moment. So do I suffer or do I survive? Don't talk about the drug trade in the drug trade in there. Yes. Exactly. And that's the thing. The vendors, people who are selling these market people, they aren't asking for handouts. They aren't asking for the government charity. They're asking to be given a chance to provide a good that people want. The reason they can do that is because they are providing goods and services that people want. They're providing a positive thing inside of the marketplace, inside of the total economy. So it doesn't help us to hinder them. That doesn't help us. And something like that, I think the nature of Trinidad and the amount of resources we have in Trinidad and Tobago, if we bolster our entrepreneurial kind of free trade, free market idea inside of Trinidad and Tobago, we would be able to have a much more booming economy without the levels of import that we have right now. I think that is feasible. Everyone can't be an entrepreneur, but I believe everyone can treat their services, treat their skills in that kind of nearly small business owner mentality. And we all trade our goods and services on that basis. But if we cannot all trade our goods and services on a level playing field, then we are in trouble. People are talking about the law is the law. How many of you go to Grand Bazaar and don't go protesting? Because if you are saying the law is the law, you're supposed to be wanting Grand Bazaar to be evicted. How was Grand Bazaar built? How many of you know how Grand Bazaar was built? It wasn't done all legally. Many of the massive companies you see right now begun in squatting. Listen, I live in Central. If you drive around Central, so many trucking companies that have their trucking yard on two lots of land here. They go into a savannah next door, they go into a cane field next door, and they just drop off some dirt, they drop off some sand, because they have the trucks to do it. And then eventually they grade it down. Then eventually they park some trailers in it, and eventually half acre inside of the government land, inside of the state land, is theirs. And then they fence it over. And no one does anything about that, but the chow man selling repeatedly in the one spot where he makes the most money needs to be arrested. You understand why people would watch this and frown. If you're looking at the broken windows policy, as Richard Glubman says, the broken windows policy where you're looking for things that are obviously wrong and you're fixing that first, and that would fix the unobvious thing. You see, that's the idea of the broken windows policy. It's not just about the small things, it's about the obvious things, because a window is obvious to notice. Now, a trucking company spreading dirt, spreading soil, and spreading their land illegally is obvious to notice. People notice. People know. Oh, jeez. People know. And yet still, it is done. Bro, why are you talking to us? Talk to Rowley. You see, that's the problem in our society. That right there, Mr. Monster Muds, is the problem I think we have in our society. The problem we have is we assume, we always believe that the government is the one to help us. It's the government that should be doing this. Why the government don't? And why the government don't? And the government is helping poor people. And the government is helping the mothers. And the government is helping me raise none my children. And look, my house break down and the government can't give me no money. And look, I ain't have no food and the government ain't give me nothing to eat. And the government and the government and the government and the government. And you're a slave. You have that same colonial mentality where we hope that whoever is in control of this comes and helps us, and they are the one who has to give us the instruction. And here's the thing. Many politicians would love that. Here's what. You wait for us to tell you exactly what to do. You work when we tell you. You work how we tell you, and we'll give you just how much you deserve. And they love that. You would love the World Economic Forum, because their idea is that you would own nothing and you would be happy. So you would just be working to consume, and then you'd stay there and they would control everything else for you. Don't worry about healthcare. You don't have to pay for your healthcare. We would see about that for you. Don't even worry about buying a vehicle. We are going to have public transport to get you around everywhere you need to go. Don't worry about educating and teaching your child. You don't even need to teach them to talk. We are going to create free education from the moment your child is weaned. From the moment they don't need your breast milk anymore, give them to us. We will teach them what to think. And all you need to do is do some work, and we will give you the money, and you need to eat, sleep, and poop. And that's all. You're living a perfect human life. Sorry, I am not interested in that. That's why I talk to people, because Rowley isn't the one that changes our society. He's the one that can enact legislation. He's the one that can possibly change the constitution. But those words on paper is not what changes the country. It's the culture, it's the people that change the country. Those police could have chosen not to charge the chow man. That has nothing to do with Rowley. The police who charged that chow man didn't get their instructions directly from Rowley. So telling Rowley about it isn't the solution to that. Speaking about it as a society so we can understand the culture we want in our society is how we get these things. The mentality that the politicians will fix it is the political mentality that stagnates this country. I despise it, to be very honest with you. I despise it. I think other people was behind that. It's the movement of a unified people that counts facts when the chowman who not depending on anyone getting locked up. Take your UBI and live in a pod. Guys, don't forget to sign up the likes. That's true. Rowley can't spot Rowley can't spot an online scam. Poor Rowley showing off his age there. That was unfortunate, Doc. Doc, that wasn't a good look. Wasn't a good look, Dr. Rowley. All right. We have spoken at great length about this young man and the laws regarding vending and business, etc., etc., etc. I was hoping that by now, good night, do you vote? Generally, yes, I do. Because this is the way I see it. This is the way I see it. Whether you vote or not, one of the options are going to have some control over your country. I disagree with the people who always say they are all the same. I don't think any two people are the same. And when you have two groups, the two groups obviously are not actually going to be the same. Many people who say they are the same are, I think, being dishonest and creating a cop-out so that they don't have to get into that discussion. But I think you can honestly evaluate any two groups and possibly make a decision who you think would be better or less worse to run your country. And that's why I generally vote. Now, I understand the idea of not voting, but I think to not vote, you have to be doing that very purposefully. The idea that voting ain't gonna change nothing and me care, yes, but anyway, you take it them teeth in so I don't go and vote. I don't like that idea. I think that's very defeatist. If you're saying that I am not voting because my intention is to increase the block of people in the country that do not vote, and we are going to make a statement with that, and eventually, hopefully, we can do something with that statement, then grand. But if it's just not to vote, then that does nothing beneficial to the country in my mind. So that's the answer to that. But as I was saying, I was hoping that by now my fellow discusser would have popped in. But it doesn't seem like she is interested. Where's Rhea? Rhea is nowhere to be found. Tonight we were supposed to have that discussion on abortion. That was the planned discussion for tonight. But the fellow discusser, unfortunately, is not here yet. Do you think public servants will support the union on Friday? I do not think the majority of them will. I do not think the majority of public servants are going to support the unions on that matter. It's difficult. My take on a lot of this is I find it interesting. If this was on the private job market scheme and what the public servants were saying about their job was true, they would have left the job. The fact that the public servants haven't left the job is showing that there's still a lot of benefits to working in the public sector that many people enjoy, and I don't think they will do too much to risk that. Actually, you should have messaged her before. The blame is on you. I ain't taking no blame. I ain't taking no blame. We is big people out here. If you discuss something and you say you'll be here Tuesday, you know the deed. I used to be totally averse not voting, but I do understand why do nothing is an option too. Yes, I understand that. I do. They better do. I don't think they will leave forever, but I don't think they will. Honestly, I don't. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, and I like it. I like it. I find this is what we should see more of in the public service. Let's put our chips on the table. All the public servants go out there and threaten that we are not going to do any work anymore unless you pay us the correct money. Oh, you clearly do not understand negotiations. Okay. One sick leave not costing nobody their job, they could support on a technicality. No, I am not saying that they are going to lose their jobs in that way. But we'll see. I'm just saying that I don't think they will. We'll see when the numbers come in on Friday. But I agree with this. By all means, put all your cards on the table. Let's see where this ends. All the public servants say we aren't doing any more jobs until you pay us what we deserve, and we'll see what the government believes they deserve. And if what is going to happen, as has happened in some other countries before, you find out that maybe they do increase, they double the pay on some public servants and they quarter the staff of the public service. I am not understanding what many public servants expect to come out of this. Do you think that the government has a large cache of money somewhere that they could easily just pop out and pay you with? That's what I was saying with the public versus the private. If you're working at KFC and KFC is posting record profits for this year, then fine. You can ask for more money. But the government running on a deficit, the government running on a deficit. Lee Forever Board saying the government can pay. Well, the government can always pay because they can pay into the red. But the reality is they're running on a deficit. They literally cannot pay in terms of they're already running on a loss. What percent of the public sector has skills that make them difficult to replace? Not a high percentage. Not a very high percentage. The government always said they do not have, always say they do not have the money. Because they don't. They never do. They're always running on a deficit. And every time they increase the pay, they increase the deficit. Night Neil Wong. The reason I'm saying I wouldn't mind this reaching the spot, I find we should clear up this. We should really clear this up. Get an accurate estimate of what the public servants are actually worth on the market. Like, to me, if I was a public servant, I would want to know that. This amount of work that I do every day from 8 to 4, what is the actual worth of my day of labor on the market? The problem is many public servants are taught the lessons of entitlement in so much that they have no consideration for that question. They don't think about whether they're doing enough work for enough pay. I have never heard the PSC address that. I have never heard the union speak about that. I have never heard the leadership inside the public service speak about that. I will not doubt that plenty are actually underpaid. So regularly when I speak about the public service and when people speak about the public service and they go in heavy on them, some public servants come out and say, listen, we've been doing work. We've been doing a lot of work. We've been working really hard, and I do not doubt that. I do not doubt that in many departments inside of the public service, there may be 3 people doing the work for 30 people. And here's the thing. I think those 3 people should receive the pay for probably 10 people and fire the 30 others. That is the problem. It's similar like in the police service. When you talk about the corruption in the police service and the corruption that is ubiquitous throughout the police service, regularly you would have defenders like Richard Gloveman out there in the chat would come in and say it's not all the police, it's not all the police not corrupt. Yes, you're right, not all are corrupt, but the ones who are not are turning a blind eye to the ones that are corrupt, causing the place to be like it is. So the public servants who are doing the work, they know very well that there are 30 people in their department who do no work and should be fired. But the unions are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure not one person is fired, because that would be union dues decreasing. We cannot have that now, can we? So the unions would say ridiculous things like the public service is understaffed. The unions are constantly saying that. The last union leader, that was one of his mantras, the public service is understaffed and overworked. The public service is understaffed and overworked. So that's that. That is nonsense. And again, user with a lot of numbers, no, the government is in charge and they want it how it is. That's the same thing I was saying from before. We're going back to that same government thing. Listen, Dr. Rowley and his 24 other people in and around him do not control the tens of thousands of people inside of the public service directly. Those people's behaviors are on those people. When you go into the office and sit down on your phone for 8 hours and do nothing and leech off of the country's money, you cannot look around and say, well, that is the system, and them politicians make the system, so that is how the system is. And then you're going to protest for more money. It doesn't work like that. Yes, the system is that way, true, yes. But you are very much a part of the system too. And you are participating in that and then wanting to claim that it's just the politicians' fault. No, your laziness is pulling down the country too. That's part of it. That is part of it. They actually move people who perform and promote people who they want. That is very true. That is very true. And again, that's why I always question the people who are working the best and the hardest in the public service. If you are working in a job where they are promoting the slackers and keeping down the people who are working hard, why would you stay in that job? We have problems, but 2 wrongs doesn't make a right. Proper management can fix a lot. I agree. For the longest while, the public servants have no tools, stationary toiletries to work with. I just don't understand this. I don't understand this. if you have no tools to work with, you aren't being given a raise, the higher ups are corrupt, why are you there? Why are you there? Where I'm at, I tell my seniors the good is punished and the bad is rewarded. People lose motivation. We have been using from our pockets for stability. Exactly, it's stability. I understand that, and that's what they protest for. And I think some of the arguments that the public servants get on with are similar to some of the arguments that the US women's soccer team get on with. You are in the public service in a job like that because you like the stability of knowing that the government is going to pay you regardless of what happens, regardless of what you do. You love that security. You love that security. Now, the reality is that security comes with a lot of hang-ups. That security comes with hang-ups. That's the nature of it. You can leave that security any day and go out there and see if anyone wants to hire you to type 3 documents per day and play on your phone for 8 hours. And you recognize very swiftly that's not something that is very employable. And then you would realize the value of the work that you were putting out in the public service wasn't worth the amount of money you were getting. And because of that, you are running the country on a loss. That's what is happening. I think a lot of the public service is running the country on a loss. The amount of value we are getting out of the public service isn't the amount of money we are paying into the public service. And if that is so, if we increase the pay on the public service, we are just going more into the deficit. I said this already on this topic. I would rather we fire a lot of the extra waste inside of the public service, pay the people that are working the right amount, and use that extra money. You know what? Give us a fuel subsidy. I could do it that fuel subsidy again. That 300 plus to fill up the tank, rail not cutting it. I could do it the cheap gas again. And that cheap gas might be more useful than paying someone to wear the ever famous Van Heusen fitteds and go and sit in an AC office and play on the phone whole day. I don't understand that. And the reality, I think, is this is where unions are really supposed to show their mettle. Unions in their discussions, in their negotiations, aren't supposed to be talking about we underpaid and overworked and we need more money. No, get into the nitty-gritty. Get into the nitty-gritty. Try and figure out how do we negotiate to get better management? How do we negotiate to get better work? Audit the amount of work done. How do we negotiate to get these things done? And if we can get something like proof of the amount of work we are doing, then we can get better negotiation into. Wow, I got a log out over there on Instagram. Sorry for those who are viewing me on Instagram. Unions are these people up more than ever. You give 90% of Shini's a job with no one looking over them. We'll do the same. Relax. I think public servants are underestimated and most times we are understaffed. Apparently, that's what you do at your office. Most of the time, the process is too reliant on human. Unions are never balanced and are not about effective service. Unions set those people up more than ever. Unions cause mettle downfall. That's very true. I can't even make a call on my office phone. Don't forget that. Damn straight, this mindset starts from school days. Yeah, that's one of the I don't want to say I like that story because I know some people who worked at Mittal and that was hard. I understand that. That really was hard. I don't disagree there. But that shows what unions do. And I find unions are so one-track minded. You have all these workers here. You have the power of the employers here. Let's get serious with the negotiations. The only negotiation is always more money, less work. Like, oh gosh, let's get a little more serious with how we figure this out. Mittal, they boasted, ran down to the industrial court. One, they have to pay us more money. And that same evening, Mr. Mittal called and wrap it up. We done. Over's that. And that win by the union caused unemployment from the from their members in Mittal and caused the country as a whole to lose steel production. Unions and their grand ideas. You would recall Petrotrin protested for a salary increase 2 years before they had it shut down. Well, the part of the problem with Petrotrin, I've spoken to many people from Petrotrin before, and part of the problems with Petrotrin is they have the friend and family entry, but they have union protected exit. So it's very, well, not very easy, but relatively easy for people to pull in people who they know and pull them in to pay them a lot of money. And then once they are pulled in, it's very difficult to push them out because the unions make that certain. And union members are still employed and paid through, though, yes, they are. You need to understand work is distributed by the management, not the union. Oh, that line actually was, that was a dread bad mind move from Mittal, though no, only the management hires. If I was in that position, I'd do the same. Only the management hires. I happen to know for sure that wasn't true in Petrotrin. I know for sure that wasn't true in Petrotrin. People who knew people could get people in. It's not all on the management. You need to understand work is distributed by management. I have seen how public service works, how the public service works. It's not all on the management. I know my mother worked in the public service for quite some time. She quit. She left because the public service, she said the public service was atrophying her work ethic. She couldn't function in it. It was frustrating. One of the things, one of her primary pet peeves also was that they wanted her to lie. Constantly, her workmates, her fellow workers wanted her to lie. Constantly, because if she does the work and she's honest about the amount of work she does and how and when she does the work, it shows bad on the other workers who aren't doing any work. So they constantly pressured her to lie. When she refused to lie, there was a lot of friction in the office place, starting from the first entry to the building on a morning when they signed in into the book what time they came. If she came 7:55, she would sign 7:55. My mother is a very honest woman. She would sign that time. And then the person, all of those who come after 8 and are trying to sign a lie time that they came early, only have 5 minutes to spread out their lie. So they would like her, you come 7:55, but right 7:30 now, so you give us half hour to spread it out. It's not just the management. It's not just the management. That is dishonest. And that's the frustrating part. So many public servants, when they're criticized about what goes on in the public service, attempt to make it seem like that's not the truth. I line that up right there with the police service. When they're criticized, they attempt to make it seem, no, the police service doesn't do it. Listen, we are Trinidadians. We know what is going on. I have gone inside of the Attorney General's office, inside of the Legal Affairs Ministry, and you're watching people who are supposed to be helping you, and they are there for frustrating. Do not tell me that is on management. That is laziness taught inside of the public service. They go in there and they have lessons on laziness as they progress through the public service. Don't lie to us and make us seem like it's all on management and the political class. We are out here trying our best to work, but the management doesn't give us enough work to do. That is not true. Come on. That really is not true. Eyewitness a Petrotrin messenger being essentially chauffeured by a driver, 2 jobs for 1 function. Name one company union saved in Trinidad. Good one. Fix the system and hold people accountable and everything will be okay. 2022 public service is too slow and backward. Fire the majority and automate and digitize most requests and functions. Wow. Can't hold them accountable. The union will hold them back. Not true. Each situation on its own merits. Lessons on laziness. Yes. So I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that this is only a management level thing. It's a problem that has poisoned the public service throughout. You goings, come on. Have you been to the licensing department? Have you seen the amount of bribes you pay in general for anything in the public service that has very serious consequences? In order for you to get it done fast, it ends up in a bribery scene. License, customs, anything that gets very serious, well, you have to pay a bribe to get this to run. That's not on management. Come on. You pay the bribe to the person right there. Unions hold back a lot of progress. I believe that too. Employers lose the union because they don't have documentation of what they're standing for. So I in the wrong walk then? Probably you are. Here's what. I believe many of you public servants, who are the ones that are holding up your entire department, you are the ones putting in the most work out there. Many of you public servants, you may be surprised to know you take that same work ethic, that same industry, out onto the private market and allow people who want your service to be willing to pay for it, and you may shock yourself how much more you would make. I wouldn't mind if what we face in the public service is a brain drain of all the effective workers. Let the public service collapse as it may, and let that force them to restructure it. Okay, we cannot vote them into making them restructure it. Well, all the good workers leave, let it collapse on itself, and they would have no choice but to restructure it. But no, we can all stay there and milk. We can stay there and milk the country till the country runs out of money and say, oh no. What is your IQ? What a question. If management puts systems in place, corruption will end, but they say it is too expensive. That is not true. If management puts system in place, corruption would end. That's not. There are no systems on earth that can stop corruption. There's no system that good that can stop corruption. The office I was calling my friend started last week, and she's doing the thing I was calling for, bringing down the few good ones in the system. Management is corruption. Yeah, that's true. But the corruption is throughout the system. It's not just management. That's the point I was making. It's not just management. Corruption happens all through the length. I saw that in my if that's a private company, then I could see it, but not public sector. It's not going to happen in the public sector. The public sector goes right up to the politician, and you aren't going to get uncorrupted politicians. So that's a feeling hope. The public sector starts at the political level. That's just what it is. What is my IQ? I haven't tested my IQ in a very long time. The last time I tested my IQ, I believe I was late teenage years. All right. I'm still running over on YouTube, but let's close down this YouTube. Now it doesn't seem like the actual discussion is going to happen tonight, at least not in that sense, but don't worry, we'll have it. Rhea will surface sometime and we'll have that discussion. I'll stay for a little while longer over on TikTok discussing, but that's all I have for now, folks, over on YouTube. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I'll see you again tomorrow for the next Mindful Live starting somewhere around 9:30. Do tune in, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, drop a comment if you're looking at this over on YouTube. If you are looking at this on repeat over on YouTube and you reach the very ending here and you're hearing my voice, drop a comment and say, yo, I reached the